Some of you, those eagle-eyed viewers, have noticed that on my live map, that's the map I have on my website that tracks my live position when I'm on an expedition, have noticed in fact that I have deviated from my original track, driving east to west across Australia. You would be right, and of course now the question you have is, did I complete the route? All right, today's blog, I've actually got a piece of paper. There's so much that has happened over the last couple of months that I have to share them with you, just so you know also why certain videos will be released onto YouTube, and then of course what's happening later this year. My March was basically wedding month. I did very little apart from attend Kate's wedding. Those of you who know my shows, of course, know Kate. Kate was on my Zambia expedition, some South African expeditions, and my US expedition last year.
I'm authentic.
She got married to her childhood sweetheart in Bali.
Darling, don't be afraid. I have loved you for a thousand.
In April, of course, I left for the Trans-Australia expedition, and I was originally going to truck my vehicle all the way to Melbourne, but it turned out to be too difficult, very expensive, and the insurance was very iffy. So I decided to drive. But April turned out to be an amazing month because, of course, I got to test the BF Goodrich KM3 tyre. I was the first person on the planet to actually shoot a proper review and actually take it on a proper expedition, which for me was very, very exciting. And I did that, and the tyres, if you've seen the review, link above, you'll see the tyres performed very, very well. In fact, I will fit KM3s on my vehicle from now on, but I think that they're so suitable for my kind of work that I'm actually going to remove the second spare wheel. I will be producing in the next couple of weeks a video, the next phase of the troop carrier build, because I've had so many questions about, how did this perform, how did that perform, how did this perform, and I put a rear wheel carrier on it, and I upgraded the brakes, and I did the axle widening, all of the details of that to come up in the next video. And in fact, I'm now going to take off that one spare wheel at the back. I'm only going to carry one spare wheel because actually for the Trans-Australia trip, my vehicle was heavier than I would have liked. It's gone over that weight level. I'm still 400 kg springs at the back, but anyway, that's what that video will be all about, all my rationale and my ideas about the troop carrier and what I actually used to drive across Australia. And I was in fact gone for 7 weeks. Now the editing, of course, of that program I'm deep in the editing, and this is the part of the process I absolutely love. And then there's, of course, Africa. Once I finished editing this, I'll be going to Africa, and that'll be happening July this year. And my plan is to find, people think that particularly my viewers now who are watching a lot of my Australian content that have spent a lot of time in Africa will make a comment, oh, there weren't very many animals, were there? And there were a lot of animals, but you just see them in a different way, and it's a different type of trip. It's not so many drives in Africa, people will go on a trip to see animals. That's their primary objective on a trip. And that has very rarely been the case for me when I've done a trip in Africa, is to go and see animals. Animals are part of it. But people don't generally realize, unlike Australia, where kangaroos are virtually bouncing down the high street, it's not quite like that, but you see a lot of kangaroos, and you don't really have to go out of town to see kangaroos. Just go onto the golf course, any golf course, you'll see kangaroos. It's not like that in Africa. You have to go to the game reserves to see lots of animals. You might have the occasional animal around, but it's not common. Generally, because of the levels of poverty in that part of the world, those animals that just wander around are generally eaten by the population. They're regarded as a food source. So you have to go to game parks. Now the trouble is with game parks, they're fenced to stop the animals getting out and harming people. And of course stopping non-paying guests getting in. So generally speaking, when you go into a game park to go and see animals for the specific purpose of seeing animals, you have to go into the game park and then you camp or stay in a lodge. When you're camping, you're protected by a fence. When you're staying in a lodge, you're protected by a fence often, but not always. However, there are some campsites left where you're not protected from the animals. And that is the purpose of my Southern African expedition, July this year, I'll be going to Botswana. I love Botswana, probably my favorite country on earth. Zambia, unbelievable. Part of Zimbabwe. Those 3 countries are going to be our focus. And we will be exploring areas where you can actually camp in and around the wildlife, hoping for some great animal encounters. Those programs will be released August, September on YouTube. I've had a number of meet and greets in Australia. I had one in Adelaide, I had one in Melbourne, and I had one in Brisbane. They were all a huge success. The meet and greet in Melbourne was literally outside a 4x4 store. It was an opposite lock store, just outside Melbourne. But unlike Adelaide, actually was a little different. It was only for my Patreon supporters, so that you guys know who you are, who saw me there. Very, very nice of you to come and see me. Thank you for that. And you gave me some good pointers on traveling on my route. Thank you. That was really, really helpful. We had a very, very nice evening. And of course, the one in Brisbane was, well, just actually outside Brisbane in Ipswich, and hosted by Global Sat High Stuff Road. Thank you to you guys. You did a brilliant. They did burgers and cokes and everything, and we must have had about 150 to 200 people there. Really, really well attended. All of you that came, thank you. And the person who left those cokes in my front seat. I have a bone to pick with you people about this Coca-Cola addiction that you think I have. It's not an addiction, I just happen to like it a lot. Many years ago, well, 3 years ago, I thanked somebody for bringing me a Coke at an expo. And now it's become a habit, and I don't have a problem with it. But whoever did this, and I don't know who it is, you've taken things too far. 2 dozen Coke. The trouble is, if I now tell you that he gave me 2 dozen Cokes, the next person will try and beat it by bringing 12 dozen Cokes. I'm not going to say anything more. Just keep watching, and to see what happened with those Cokes. Just, I'm not going to say anything more. During the trip through Australia, I would be driving, and I had come up with these ideas about some overland workshop things that I can share, things that I've taken for granted. For example, something just happened on the road up there, and nothing serious, but something just happened, and it made me think. A lot of people that drive this kind of road, long distance roads, they just don't know how to do it. Driving along Australia, there's a track in Australia, 146 kilometers long. It's absolutely straight. It's the 3rd longest straight bit of road in the world. And I thought, what a great place to film a video about highway driving. What I've learnt about safety when highway driving. And that is one of several overland workshop videos that I shot, and I will be editing in the months ahead. And those were done on my Trans-Australia trip. I think you'll enjoy those. This will be on a flies. I should mention here that Kate and Cameron have bought a yacht. Yes, they're taking. I'm not taking the credit for this, because it wasn't just me. Kate is a wildflower. She just sparks with ideas all the time, and to my great delight, none of those ideas are buy a house and settle down and have kids. That's the last thing I want her to do, and I think it's the last thing she will do. And this brings me great pleasure that she's not, in fact, going to do that. She's bought a boat, and she's going to go sailing. I should say they have bought a boat and are going to go sailing. I do have an announcement about a new book that is about to be released. It is called Campfire Memoirs. The book is complete. I mentioned it about a year ago about a picture book of some of my favorite ever campsites. A little anecdote about that campsite, the kind of trip I was on, why I was there, and what was special about the campsite. Well, that book is being released this month. It will be sold on Amazon, but for you Patreons, all of my Patreons, $3 and above, you'll get it for nothing. I'm trying to really, in the best way possible, say thank you, because it's my Patreon supporters that actually allow me to do all of this. You guys make it possible, and so the book is really my way, another way that I can say thank you to you. Expect a special message from me about the book by middle of June, expect a message from me. Lastly, did I deviate from my route? The idea was I had to cross Australia and go to Melbourne to do the BFG launch, and then I would drive up to Brizzy and then do the meet and greet in Ipswich, and then drive from Byron Bay, furthest most eastern point, and drive right across the Red Centre to the westernmost point. I did complete it. However, I did deviate on my route, exactly as the live map described. Why did I deviate? 2 reasons. Flies. Hi!
It's disgusting.
Unbelievable. The middle of Australia has a plague of flies at the moment, and it's actually starting getting better. But they said to me, asking a number of people, that had never seen it so bad. Late rains and also, low temperatures meant the water was sticking around. It wasn't evaporating very quickly. Meant the flies just went crazy, and that entire centre of Australia is just inundated with flies. And we were right in the middle of it, and they were saying it is the worst they've ever seen it. The trouble is with flies, you can't film anything. You're driving along, and the way a story happens is you're driving along and you see something, or something happens, and you think, I'm always thinking, my mind is always churning, how can I fit that into the story? Here's a little piece of content, because I'm there to get content. That's what I'm there for. Tell a story, find content, find a story, find a content. See folks, only on Forex Overland do you get the real truth behind overlanding. Sometimes I'd say it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. Because the flies were so bad, and the flies would just go around the camera, and it made life extremely difficult. And I thought, well, if this continues, then the last section I might actually give it a miss, and I could decide to do that, because in February this year, as part of my experiment to decide whether wide tyres or narrow tyres were best for overlanders, I did the last piece of the trip from Mikahara to the west coast at Steep Point. I actually did those on 285, the same size as the KM3s I fitted to the vehicle, drove on KO2s on those wide tyres, so I could make a direct comparison between the two. I did that journey, and the flies were bad there too. So I will remember it more for the flies than anything else. In February, so while there's still that little piece that in the middle of Australia that I haven't covered, I have in effect crossed the continent twice. And that story, I'm, as I said before, having so much fun editing and putting together right now. Remember to click that subscribe button. You want to get close, you want to get free books, I get a lot of messages. I get so many people asking me questions on YouTube. I cannot answer them all. Sorry. It's impossible, okay? But I promise you one thing. You're a Patreon. I read every single Patreon message without fail. And I answer ask me a direct question, I will answer it, okay? And I respond to probably 60 or 70% of those messages. So that's the way to become part of what I do in a meaningful way. Thank you again for watching.